I tend to procrastinate on important things, which stresses me out. I eventually do a good job, but I imagine the receiver of my work would respect me more if I delivered early. You mentioned in your material waiting as long as possible for efficiency, which makes me feel like I have permission to procrastinate. But on the other hand, I still experience anxiety and feel like I should do better. What are your thoughts?
I think there's a duality here that's sort of embedded in so much of productivity. Isn't there like this duality? I don't know, if you really look, you realize that actually productivity isn't one inherent good. It tends to be like walking over Niagara Falls on wire with a balancing beam. You're trying to like balance between two extremes. On one hand, if you become that person who delivers early, I can tell you exactly what's going to happen and you're not going to like it. Here's what's going to happen. You are going to deliver early and they are going to start expecting that you will deliver early. So what used to be a week turnaround time is going to become 4 days, is going to become 3 days, is going to become 2 days. And all of a sudden, if you go back to delivering at a week, they're going to be like, what is wrong with you? You might even get a bad performance review. So you have actually like painted yourself into a tighter and tighter and tighter corner. So part of the reason I always say set the most generous deadlines you can for yourself and use all of it is not because I want you to procrastinate. It's because I want you to create a demilitarized zone between you and your coworkers, right? A buffer zone, if you will, a grace zone, some flex. So we all need flex in our productivity game. We need some slack in the productivity system. Now, if you're waiting to the very last moment, it defies the whole point of there being slack in the system. Meaning slack in the system is there so that you can finish it in 2 or 3 days, put it in a folder or put it in a drawer, go about doing your thing and deliver it to them on time in a week. And here's the thing, if they expect a week and they get it in a week, they are not disappointed at all. They are super happy. They think you're amazing. They love the quality of your work product. They don't know that you were done with it 3 days early. They are not harmed by you finishing it 3 days early, but you are significantly benefited by doing it 3 days early, because now option one, you finished it with 3 days to go, you put it in the drawer, and then you go on and work on other things and turn it on time. Option two is something bad happens in your health or your life, and you ended up needing those extra 3 or 4 days to actually turn it around and get it done. I want you to do it early, but not turn it in early, because what I'm looking for you as your productivity coach is I want you to be in a place where you can experience the best of both worlds, where you've got as much slack as you possibly can in your productivity game. You are not a slave to procrastination. You're not using exogenous motivation to get this thing done. You're getting it done on your timeline early, giving yourself the gift of that slack, and the person on the other side is no worse off, none the wiser and no worse off. It is not surprising that almost all of us who came up through a traditional schooling environment are heavily, overly dependent on extrinsic motivation, because that is how we were raised. We were raised with the implicit threat. Now, maybe your parents weren't specifically threatening you, but there was always the implicit, like, you will be more loved if you get better grades. If you don't stay in the honors track where all of your friends are, you'll get downgraded to the bonehead math track and you won't be able to be in the same class with your friends. Life is filled with this extrinsic motivation. And in fact, when you look at how we structure the world for our kids, we structure it with all of this highly structured, linearized steps. First grade, then second grade. Get this grade, then they get this grade. Qualify for this, then qualify for this, right? It's always like this step, then this step. And it's filled with implicit threats that optimize us for extrinsic motivation. So we are, as adults, it is no surprise then that we go into the workplace and we need a deadline to perform. We cannot perform if there's not a deadline. And a lot of my clients will complain that there's now things in their life that you could not possibly structure a threat around. So Elsa, if you want to go out and create this amazing organization for young women to step up to the next level of STEM, this is this amazing vision that you have. There is 0 people in the world who are going to come and put a gun to your head and say, you need to do it by next May. So the best things that we want in life often we aren't able to structure extrinsic motivation around. And so often we're sort of left adrift in life where we are overly dependent on threats, deadline, social capital, loss of social capital in the workplace. We've become overly dependent on this. And that little muscle of intrinsic motivation, meaning I'm going to do this because I said I was going to do it, I'm going to do it because that's the plan, becomes this like tiny little underused muscle that we can't lift anything with because we haven't exercised it. And so the answer is probably not one you're going to love, but it's the truth, is we need to start small and start building up that muscle of intrinsic motivation and just saying, I'm doing this because I said I was going to do it. Now, let me tell you the right way and the wrong way to do that. The wrong way is to fill your brain with negative self-talk, personal threats. Now we're lacking external threats, so now we make personal threats. Like, if you don't do this, Elsa, you don't get to have that daily walk that you love. Or we fill our voice with like negative self-talk, like, you're such a loser, or why can't you do this, or what's wrong with you, or you just need to buck up, right? Like all of this negative talk. I can tell you right now, that's gonna go nowhere. When we're coming from intrinsic motivation, we need to come from a place of deep excitement, which is really anchoring into two things. Number one, your vision. So going back to your life map, this is why I read my life map every single day, is I am a rebel. If I'm not going to do it because somebody else is threatening or something else is threatening me to do it, then I have to do it because I genuinely want to do it. Even if it's what I call necessary BS, where I'm like, I don't want to do this thing, I still want what's on the other side of that thing. Like, I don't want to deal with this person or this situation or this circumstance, but I want what's on the other side of this person or situation or circumstance. So that's number one. The first way to start building intrinsic motivation is to anchor deeply into why you want to do it and why it is on the path to something that you deeply want or desire. Number two is anchoring into your values. I am the kind of person who follows the plan that I set. This is who I am in the world, and I am working on being this kind of person. Now, notice the common thread between these two things is that they're positive. It doesn't feel bad to say, I am anchoring into a value of being somebody who follows the plan that I set to the best of my ability. That doesn't feel negative. It doesn't feel like you're whipping yourself. It feels like it's positive. So I would just say, gang, I've tried it 6 ways from Sunday. Believe me, if I could have been more productive by making myself feel bad or whipping myself or giving myself my own threats, would have done it like 20 or 30 years prior to when I actually did it. Skip the trouble, save yourself the trouble, and anchor into something intrinsically positive like your values or your vision.